The deputy leader of the Labour Party, Shadow Culture Secretary, and apart from Jeremy Corbyn, the man with the biggest mandate from Labour members. Tom Watson took me to his favourite West Bromwich cafe, where he goes for breakfast before constituency surgeries. He's under no illusions 2017 could be a difficult year.
There's a golden rule in politics that no matter how bad it gets, do not be under an illusion that it can't get any worse. But also, there's also a golden rule for politicians, which is if you make predictions, they're always wrong. Who would have said at the start of 2016 that David Cameron would have to stand down as Prime Minister, that Britain would be leaving the European Union and that Theresa May would be Prime Minister? Dare I say that Jeremy Corbyn would also be facing a second leadership election. So we face uncertain times, and I think what that requires is political parties to show strong leadership, to give direction to the country and be very honest about the problems they face as a political group to try and deal with some of the terrible global problems that are facing the British people.
It's a challenging period, though, for Labour. You were talking about strong leadership. Len McCluskey has given Jeremy Corbyn until 2019 to start improving things in the polls. Diane Abbott has given him until next year. What's your timetable? I
think he's absolutely wrong to try and put a timetable on Jeremy's leadership, particularly as he's now got a second mandate from the leaders. I'm very clear. I gave private counsel when Jeremy was challenged in a no-confidence vote. I thought it would be very difficult for him to lead our parliamentary party after that vote took place. But he thought different. He went to the membership, they gave him a second mandate. It's now for all MPs to respect that mandate. He will lead us into the general election. It will be his manifesto. And whether you're Len McCluskey or Diane Abbott, they should respect that and make sure that he leads the party unencumbered by those kind of false tests.
So it sounds like you were pretty clear that Jeremy Corbyn will lead the party into the 2020 general election.
I'm very clear about it.
There's an interesting report out recently from the Fabian Society that's saying that Labour is on course to win fewer than 200 seats, the worst performance since the 1930s. I mean, is it time now to consider doing a deal with some other left-wing parties?
I think that is a counsel of despair if you do that. I mean, effectively, what you're saying if you go down that route is saying we accept that the policies we've got are not acceptable to the electorate, and so we're trying to build a wider coalition. It's not ambitious enough, and it never works. What we've actually got to do is make sure that we have an exciting manifesto, that we try and capture the future, and try and capture people's imagination about what Britain could be like post-Brexit, how we can make our country fair again, and make sure that it's not just the sort of limited few that benefit from economic growth. And that requires a strong Labour Party. So I don't buy into this strategy at all that you do a deal with the SNP and the Greens.
And do you think those conversations are going on then?
They go on all the time. Actually, they went on with Tony Blair, they went on with Gordon Brown, and on the left of the Labour Party, that debate is taking place. I'm not going to have anything to do with that. I just think it's a ridiculous notion.
The polls, of course, are pretty problematic for Labour. Some of them have you as many as 14 points behind the Conservatives. Now is the time for you all to be in the trenches together. When was the last time you spoke to Jeremy Corbyn?
By text yesterday. We talked about the death of the art critic John Berger, and then just before Christmas I wished him happy Christmas, and he texted me to wish me happy New Year. So we've had the Christmas break. We actually talk on the phone and text nearly every day, and I see him at the Shadow Cabinet on a Tuesday, and I see him at PMQs on a Wednesday. So
you do feel listened to, because that wasn't really the case. Many Shadow Cabinet members previously said that they didn't feel that they were being listened to by the leader's office.
Well, I guess I'm in a unique position that when I think my voice should be heard, I've got ways of getting it out there. There were teething problems with the way Jeremy's team work, and I don't have a great relationship with some of his team members. That's publicly on record. But with Jeremy himself, we enjoy a very strong relationship. And one of my responsibilities, I think, is to represent the tradition in the Labour Party that it is not his natural tradition, to make sure that their voices are heard in this debate, and I'll be doing that in 2017.
I wonder as well if there's some wider issues with Labour that aren't to do with Jeremy Corbyn, because sometimes I think it's quite easy to blame Jeremy Corbyn for some of the issues, but actually if you look at the centrist MPs, there's been a bit of a vacuum of ideas, hasn't there? What's the big vision? No wonder people are more excited by what Jeremy Corbyn's offering.
Actually, I think in the latter years of Labour in government, politicians always say, how do you renew in government? And we found that very difficult. And what I realised was what it actually usually means is the politicians are usually so exhausted after being in government for so long they've not read enough, they've not engaged enough, they've not listened to their voters enough. And actually, we've now had 6 years to do that. And what I see in the Parliamentary Labour Party is a cauldron of ideas. You look at some of the new people that came in 2015, Steve Reid, who's got an organisation called Labour Together, which is looking at what the centre-left in politics has to do to win again. Or you look at Rachel Reeves, who's carrying on the mantle that Joe Cox left to. She's about to launch a loneliness commission. There are 1.5 million people in this country who are over 70 and say that they either live in total loneliness or mainly in loneliness.
All this sounds very good, but it's quite small, isn't it? When you consider the existential crisis that Labour is in now, which has nothing to do with the leadership, it's because voters in places like West Bromwich want very different things to voters in Islington. What's the solution to that? Is the broad church of Labour over?
Well, look, a political party is the sum of the parts, right? And what I see in my parliamentary party are very talented people sparking new ideas all the time. Now, obviously, it's for the leadership team to sort of condense that into messages that can be used on the doorstep. And to me, it's about how do we make sure that people are economically secure, have jobs that give them a future and are reliable, can afford to live in their own homes or rent their own homes, and their kids can have a brighter future. And there are too many people in West Bromwich and in Islington, actually, who can no longer get on the housing ladder because they're priced out of owning their own home, can't lay roots in a community, feel that they may be qualified in low-paid jobs, don't know how many hours they're going to work the following week because they're on 0 hours contracts, and don't have any permanence in trying to sort of build their families and live their lives. And it's for all of us to address that. That's a challenge that Theresa May has got and Jeremy Corbyn has got. And I think the political party that can find remedies to those sort of problems are the ones that are going to be successful at the next election.
Immigration, of course, is one of the big fault lines, dividing the country, also dividing Labour supporters and voters. What is your party's policy on immigration? Because I'll be honest, I'm not actually clear. Members of the Shadow Cabinet seem to be saying quite different things.
I think you've got a fair point on that, and it centres around this debate around free movement of labour, which is one of the treaties we're signed up to currently in the EU. And in my view, if you talk to people in West Bromwich High Street, they will tell you that is the reason they voted to leave the European Union in very large numbers in this area. And I think for the Labour Party, what we can't say is the status quo.
So what's the policy then?
Well, so for me, what we've got to, what part of the settlement that comes out of Brexit is we've got to...
Not just for you, I'm just trying to get to grips with what is Labour's policy on immigration.
Well, Labour is looking at, we don't know what is going to come out of the Brexit settlement, but the key issue on free movement
so
Labour...
we don't really know what the policy is on immigration at the moment.
Well, we don't know what the government position is, do we? Because the government...
Well, she said that immigration's a red line, to be fair, Theresa May.
Well, yes, so we know that we're going to come out of the Free Movement of Labour Treaty, and that will form the basis of our negotiations on Brexit. But what the future looks like after that, Theresa May won't be able to tell you. Now, I wanted to be able to say that this country will have control over its own borders, that we'll be able to count the number of people in and count the number of people out, and make sure that a convincing, fair solution to people's genuine concerns about immigration is addressed. And that is one of the challenges that Labour will have in its manifesto whenever that election comes. And if we don't address that issue, then Labour won't win that election. I'm very clear about that. But let's let Theresa May tell us what's going to come after Brexit so that we can try and work out what the future holds.
So I'm clear on what your view is on immigration. I'm still not clear on the party's position.
Look, that's the party position. Let's be clear. We want a fair immigration system. It's unfair of you to ask me what Labour's notional position is when we don't even know what Theresa May's negotiating position is. That's on free movement. No, the future is very uncertain, as we said at the start of the interview. Let's see what Theresa May comes up with.
Talking about Theresa May, what do you make of her Brexit negotiation strategy so far?
Well, firstly, I had a degree of sympathy with her when that civil servant resigned this week. I thought a civil servant that writes his own policy manifesto went on his resignation letter clearly wasn't acting as a proper civil servant. But what he did highlight was the fact that they really don't have a negotiating plan. And it seems to me that we're going back on Brexit, that we're creating more uncertainty for businesses, more uncertainty for workers. And unless she rapidly credibly reassures the country that she actually knows what she's doing in this area, then I think we're in for a very difficult 2017.
Do you think she does know what she's doing?
I think she's troubled. I don't think she actually knows what a negotiation plan is. I think she has difficulty recognising the differences between Boris Johnson, David Davis and Liam Fox. And until she can solve their internal disputes, she's never going to be able to convince the country she's got a plan. And that is very, very bad for the future of jobs in this country.